Today we will be reading from three separate passages. The first is in Genesis 1:28. It's titled, "The Cultural Mandate from God to Humanity." It reads, "And God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.'" The second passage is in Jeremiah 29, verses 3 to 7, titled, "God's Call to the Jews Going into Exile in Babylon." It reads, "Thus says the Lord of the hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon, build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce, take wives and have sons and daughters, take wives for your sons, and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters, multiply there, and do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city, where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare." And finally, our last passage takes us to John 17, verses 15 to 18, titled, "Jesus' words to his disciples at the Last Supper." It reads, "I do not ask you that you take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so have I sent them into the world." This is the word of the Lord.
Nelly.
Amazing. Okay. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
I feel like my voice is booming already. Sounds amazing. Excuse me, give me a second. Just set up here. Some of you will know that I've just been struggling a little bit, to say the least, with my pinched nerve. I admitted myself to the ER at 3 a.m. on Thursday morning. I got some of the good stuff, guys. Nothing is like morphine. There's nothing like it on this earth. They sent me home with other drugs. Honestly, they didn't do anything, but morphine was the only one. So, I don't want to say I'm a proponent of morphine, but I must say it did some good work. What we're going to do this morning is, and I've said it a few times, when I've been up here in this launch team phase, just to say it might sound more like a lecture or a tutorial than a normal sermon. That being said, the plan is to exalt Christ and for our hearts to worship Him. And thank you, Nelly, for reading those three scriptures. I think if we view our mission as individuals, Christians, as a church, if we have the sharp end of our spear, kind of the tip of it, really is the gospel and evangelism and winning people to Christ, bringing them, making disciples. That's the sharp edge. We've chatted about that already. The end goal really is for the glory of God, so that people across the whole world will worship God. That's the end goal. I'm probably going to do a talk on that before this launch team phase is over. Today, what I'm going to talk about is kind of something in the middle. It's more the holistic view of mission, with the sharp edge of evangelism in the middle there, and the gospel really spilling out into all these different facets of mission. That's what we're going to chat about today. But kind of before I do that, just want to send out another reminder about our one podcast, one book, one Bible book kind of background work thing. So Ian was with us last week, and he preached on the idea of the Word and the Spirit. And I just want to remind you guys of Holy Fire. I don't even know if we put the cover up here before, but there it is. If you haven't got it, I want to encourage you to get it. As I say, do the thing that I would do. Get the free thing on Audible and then cancel your free trial. Be a cheapskate like I would be. But if you want, you can buy it hard copy. It's just a little expensive these days. I'm not sure why. It's about 500 Rand. But anyway, R.T. Kendall's Holy Fire. Fantastic. Get into it. Secondly, the podcast, just want to hit it again, how to reach the West again. What I've realized is a lot of stuff that we're talking about in these sessions in our launch team phase as we journey to the Outpost dovetails quite a lot with Keller's podcast. So it's not in the same order, but what I think you'll find is you'll go deeper into some of the topics we've been chatting about, or Keller and whoever else is being interviewed on those podcasts will bring quite fresh angles. And so I just want to encourage you to carry on or start doing that background work. I think it would serve you well as a missionary into the city, and it would serve our church well if we're consistently more engaging on the same page and doing this mission together. So that's kind of the preamble out the way. Today what we're going to talk about
is creating and engaging culture. Creating and engaging culture. What does it look like to be Christians, basically, to faithfully represent Christ in our cultural context that we find ourselves in, Cape Town 2025? What is the call on us to shape our surrounding culture that we find ourselves in, to participate in it or to not, to be contributors to it and cultivators of it? That's all the stuff that we're going to chat about today. And in all honesty, it kind of encompasses the whole of life. It encompasses work, it encompasses family, it encompasses creativity. It really does cover Christian life in general. So today I think it's going to be quite a dense time together, but also at the same time it's going to be quite high level. We're going to throw out some high level frameworks and ideas for us to latch onto. For some of us this might be brand new, for others of us it might just be a great reminder of things. But you'll see, I think it's going to connect back to things we've chatted about on evangelism. It's going to connect forward to chats next week around justice and compassion that Sam's going to do. Yeah, on that note, let's get into it. Where are we going? That's where we're going. I want to kind of give us a definition of what is culture, what is our dominant posture towards culture, and then how do we faithfully engage culture, both as the me element and as the we element. And what I'll say is this, I reserve the right to, in 3 years' time, slightly nuance this talk differently. I'm just going to put it out there. Some of the stuff is not controversial, but it's contested in the sense of how nuanced you deal with these things. And so I reserve that right for that to happen. But for now, let's go. What is culture? Nelly started off by reading from Genesis 1, what theologians call the creation mandate or the cultural mandate. And the big idea is God saying to humanity, okay, here we go, here's the plan. The big overarching idea is for you to live under my blessing. That's where that verse starts. Live under the blessing of God. God blessed them. And then he said, be fruitful and multiply. Hear this loud and clear. The first commandment in the Bible is to have sex. I want you to hear that. As an apologetics kind of tool, when people say like, oh, God's a prude and God's... No. The first command in the scriptures to humanity is to have sex, to multiply. And then from there, we're called to obviously reproduce, fill the earth with human beings, and subdue the earth. Subdue the earth. Have dominion over creation. Be cultivators of this world. Be culture makers. That's what God's put us on this earth to do, to be culture makers. And so what is culture? Andy Crouch, I think, has a very helpful definition, which I'm basically just going to riff off here. He basically says culture is what we make of the world, in both senses of that phrase. What we make of the world, in terms of making things out of the raw materials of this earth, and about making sense of this world, in the stories that we live in and believe and tell. So let's just unpack those two things quickly. Number one, making culture is making things. It's making stuff. It's taking the raw material that God has placed in this world, reweaving them for human flourishing and God's glory. Those two things always go together. So think of it like this. We're meant to take good things and turn them into very good things. We're meant to take grapes and turn them into wine. That's culture making. We're meant to take cotton and turn it into clothes for human flourishing and covering up those parts of our bodies. And the idea is we are taking God's resources, God's empowering, and combining it with our effort and our imagination. And we make stuff. Look around Woodstock as an example. This is what we are talking about. Buildings, streets, cars, clothes, beer, coffee, computers. The list is endless. That is culture. That's culture. And creating culture, creating things, is a God-like activity. Taking the raw materials of this world, reweaving them for human flourishing, is a God-like activity. You can see it in Genesis 1. It does two things. It is bringing order out of chaos, and it does that in order to serve other people. So God in Genesis 1, you track the creation story, God is reweaving the raw materials of this world. He's separating day from night, earth from sky, yada, yada, yada. He's reweaving it so that he's created a place for human beings to flourish, aka this world. And that's the same thing that we do when we go about our endeavors. And it goes all the way down to things like washing dishes. Okay? This is a theology of washing dishes. Washing dishes is bringing order out of chaos, and it's serving others for human flourishing. Because if you don't wash dishes, the humans don't flourish. It's a God-like activity. We are acting like our Father when we do these things. That's all there in Genesis 1. Obviously, you keep reading the Bible, and we arrive at this thing called Genesis 3, where everything goes pear. Where everything, I could literally say, goes to hell. Okay? Sin enters God's good world. Human beings lose the blessing of God because we turn our backs on Him, we chase other gods, and now the cultural mandate that we received is a bit different. God tells us work is going to be hard. It's not a curse, but it's under a curse, and we should expect hardship and resistance as we give ourselves to multiplying and subduing the earth. It's going to be a challenge now. And so everything I'm saying here, as I've said, is under that broader heading of work and vocation and family. It's literally, when we talk culture, we're talking about all of life. We're not talking about the artscape. Because we can think culture and we can think fine wine and paintings and artscape, theatre and opera. No. That's like high culture. We're talking about everything here. That being said, what I want to say to Woodstock Common Ground Launch Team and our mission forward is to those in this room, if you have an artistic, creative streak, I want to just push on that button right now and say, step into that. Lean into that. Ask God right now, what do you want me to do? We are serving a creative God, and we've been called to serve Him in Woodstock, which is a creative context. And so I think we have not only just the cultural mandate to make culture as people, as individual Christ followers and humans, but we've got a special mandate on us as a church. It's a missional mandate to reach people in this area, and creativity is a large part of that. And so we must lean into the arts as a church going forward. Doesn't mean we're happy to have engineers, all right? Sean, we're happy to have you, right? Happy to have you. But this church, if it's going to be faithful in this area, one of the things it must lean into in the years to come is some sort of artistic bent. And so if God is speaking to you right now, if that's you, if you've got a contribution, I want you to bring it. I want you to share your idea. I want you to paint it. I want you to write it. Whatever it is, bring the dream that God is placing on your heart. What? Biscuit mold. It's not in my sermon, but we need to announce it. I'm tangenting quickly here because my wife told me to. In 2 weeks' time, our public gathering is...
You asked me to remind you to do this in your sermon.
Oh, well then I've got it somewhere in my sermon. It's going to come up. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. I've been high on medication all week, guys. Been high on it's amazing that this is making sense right now, but let's talk about that. Making sense. Smooth transition, hey? So the fall has happened, right? We're meant to be making things and making sense out of the world in union with God. The fall has happened, sin has entered, and now human beings are worshipping a multitude of gods. We've inherited 1 million false cultural narratives about who God is, about what the world is, about what human beings are here to do. And what we then do as human beings is we try to make sense of the world apart from God. We create other narratives, and then we create things to express these narratives. That's what human culture and different religions and cultures, all how it all takes shape. We make stories. We make these meta-narratives about what the world is, why we're here, who we are, what's gone wrong, and what hope do we have, and how can we fix it. Every culture, every religion has that story, has that meta-narrative, that cultural narrative. And what you will often find in almost every human culture is that their art reflects those narratives. Their stories reflect those worldviews. And so when you are sitting on a Friday night and watching something on Netflix, know this: every movie you watch, every book you read is preaching some kind of sermon to you. It is trying to convince you or convey to you a particular narrative about the whole world and about God and life and meaning and sex and family. It's bombarding you with something, and you can just see it in, just take architecture, for example. Humanity in all their various forms, has built temples to various gods that they worship. We have rejigged our calendars around things that we worship, whether they are actual gods or whether they are gods that we have created. Human beings, what do, guys? We accumulate things, we hoard things, we decorate our houses, we dress in certain ways. All of that conveys what we value, who we love, what the world is really about. And what sin does, what it has done, is it's enabled human beings to do two things. Number one, it's enabled us to make good things and then turn them into God things. So we end up worshipping things that we've created, number one. And it enables us to just simply create bad things that are just bad, that can hurt other people, that can kill people. Here's the hope in everything I'm saying here in this first point. Despite human sin, despite satanic intervention, despite the corruption of our hearts, every human being on this planet, whether they know Jesus or not, is still created as an image bearer. They are broken. We are broken, but we are all image bearers. And God is still extending His grace towards all humanity. It might not be saving grace to every single human being that delivers people from sin. He does that for those who trust in Him. That's how you access saving grace. But there is what theologians call common grace. Common grace. It's God's smile on the world. It's God's preserving of this world from falling into utter depravity. It's God's restraining grace that stops things from going full Mad Max Fury Road. Okay? God comes and He shows His kindness. And we can see that in human beings. Kindness doesn't, we have unbelieving friends who are extremely kind, who can do great good, who can pursue justice. That's God's common grace working throughout humanity. God makes the sun to shine and the rain to fall on His people and on those who are not His people. He gives gifts and He gives talents and He gives intelligence to all human beings. That is part of God's grace towards this world. And I think He does it all for a few reasons. He does it, one, as I say, to sustain this world, to stop full Mad Max. But He also does it to display who He is to the world, to display His goodness to humanity, and ultimately to offer them, to lead them to repentance. It's the kindness of God that leads humans to repentance. And God's kindness, displayed in all these ways, is meant for us to eventually come to our senses, recognize who He is, and turn to Him. That's human culture in a nutshell, if you can call it a nutshell. And over time, culture leads to a different culture, leads to a different culture, leads to combining of cultures, leads to multiculturalism in this crazy melting pot of modern day cities all over the world. And that's where we find ourselves. We find ourselves in Woodstock and the broader area, kind of from the city to the early burbs, that I feel God's called us to reach and serve. And we find ourselves here today after thousands of years of everything I've just spoken about. We didn't arrive in a vacuum. We inhabit both place but time. We're the products of thousands of years of culture that have brought us to this moment. And we're in an extremely multicultural area, which is glorious, and it's also challenging at the same time. There's a multitude of worldviews floating around, probably just 100-meter square kind of radius around here. There are so many competing cultural narratives. It is complex. And the final thing I'll say on this first point is people have said to church planters, and I'm including all of us in this room as church planters, is it takes about 3 years since you planted your church to feel like you've got a half-decent grip on your culture, how things work, how your church will function in this culture. And so understanding Woodstock, understanding the surrounding areas, even for those of us who live in them, although you well ahead. If you live on Regent Street, you're well ahead of us. But it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. That's what I want to call us to. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But from right now, there is stuff for us to get involved in. There is ways for us to be contributing. We don't need to be paralyzed by complexity and multiculturalism. We need to embrace that and love that and move towards culture. So that's my first point, by far the longest. Everyone with me? I hope it's helpful for you to just think about your life. Yes, shut that other church out, bro. Shut that praise out. Come on. We're preaching now. Come on. All right. Here's the second point. I've tried to just keep these points actually quite simple. That's the framework of point 1. Here's the second point. What is our dominant posture towards culture as Christians and as churches? And Nelly read that passage from Jeremiah where God is sending the Jewish people into exile, into Babylon, into a foreign land full of a completely different culture and worship of other gods. And he calls the Jews to go and set up shop in there. He calls them to plant vineyards, have your people multiply, spread out, grow in this city, get stuck in creating culture. That's the call to the Jews in exile in Babylon. And he says this thing of seek the welfare of the city. And that's what we're going to get into now. But just think of the context for a moment. They have been taken, God's sovereign hand over it all, but Babylon has come and they have destroyed Jerusalem. They have wrecked the temple. They have pillaged the temple for all its gold and all its jewels. They have decimated that culture and they have taken people captive back to Babylon who worship satanic deities. And this is the culture. These are the people that God says seek their welfare. Seek their welfare. It's 10 times more hostile than the world we find ourselves in right now. It's 10 times more hostile. No one is throwing us, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, into fires right now for bowing down to other gods. But that's the culture God called the Jews to get stuck into. And this thing of being exiles is a paradigm for us as Christians as well. The Apostle Peter picks it up in his writings and calls us exiles in this world. This whole world we know is not our home, but we have been sent here by God. We live as exiles. We live here under foreign rulership where foreign gods abound, but we're not here by accident. We are sent. We are sent. We are called to move in, to set up shop, to be here, to live life here, to multiply here. And the overarching framework here is to seek the welfare of the city into which we have been sent into exile. We're meant to love the city. We're meant to serve the city. And I'm going to do a wild thing. I often put quotes up from great theologians and Tim Keller and this and that. I want to put a quote up from Michelle Peters right now. Because I was reading through a church planting paper that we wrote 2017 when we were doing our church planting course through Advance. And we were on the streets of Braamfontein kind of doing an exercise of understanding who these people are and what this place is like. And taking the lectures and the readings and being on the streets, Mish kind of summed it up. And I quoted her in the paper, and I'll quote her to you now. We're meant to find out what the city needs and help them. And we need to find out what the city loves and join them in it. That's getting involved. Obviously, there's some nuance with joining them in it, and we're going to get to that in the third point. But Michelle, well done. We're meant to find out what the city needs and help them. That's one way we seek the welfare of the city. And we're going to do a deep dive in that next week. Sam, he's led NGOs regarding homelessness and justice for, nearly 20 years. He's going to come and share from the scriptures, share from his experience. It's going to be fantastic. But that is one way that we will be seeking the welfare of the city in this area. Let me talk about the other side, though, of getting involved in the heartbeat of this culture, in what this city and what Woodstock is all about. Let me say this. We are here for Woodstock and Cape Town. We're here for them. We're not here to use Woodstock. We're not here to use Cape Town. We're here to bless it and serve it. If you're new to Cape Town and you stoked, you got a job here, and now you got, you were in that sort of godforsaken place of Joburg, and it's like, I'm joking, but there's no beach, there's no mountains, there's no vineyards, there's no all the kip stuff that Cape Town has. And you hear and you're like, oh my gosh, I have reached the promised land. What I want to say to you, but remind us all here, we're not here to use the city for our benefits as Christ followers. We are here to love the city. We'll love it by consuming their wine and running on their trails and swimming in the oceans, but we are here for the city. We love Woodstock, not just because it can give us things that we enjoy, but because God loves it. It's full of people that God loves, and He's called us to love them and get involved in them. You know those t-shirts of We Heart New York, right? And we did a whole series 15 years ago at Common Ground, We Heart Cape Town, and we had stickers and we had t-shirts. So either we need to get that up and running, or we need to get a bit of this going. This is my design I worked on yesterday. I'm open to feedback. I've tried to do that thing, you see that, you know that. I'm open to feedback. I know the font size is different from the bottom to the top. I couldn't make it fit otherwise. If you want to go for it, guys, go for it. There we go. No. I want you to create culture. And use your artistic bent. Maybe we'll have t-shirts one day. I don't know. But I'm not opposed to it. Okay? That's what my point. That's our heart. That's our posture. We love the people and the place of Woodstock and Cape Town. And what we want to see is holistic renewal in Woodstock. Holistic renewal in Woodstock. And so let me say a few things. Let me call us to a few things now. We're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to be able to do these things. But number one, if you can spend your money somewhere, and if you can spend your money in Woodstock, spend it in Woodstock. If you're going to take someone for a coffee somewhere, and you could take them for coffee in Woodstock, take them to coffee in Woodstock. Help the local businesses of Woodstock. Help the people that are here. If you want to get to know something, get to know Woodstock. If you want to start an NGO, start it in Woodstock. If you want to start a tech business or a band or whatever, start it in Woodstock. If you're going to pray, please pray. But if you're going to pray, when you pray, that's the Pauline phrase, when you pray, pray to the Lord on Woodstock's behalf. That's what God told the exiles in Jeremiah there. Pray to the Lord on behalf of the city. Pray for its welfare. We want to love Woodstock. And there's some of us in the room who should pray and ask God to put stuff on our hearts. He's been doing that in various people already. Giving people a heart for the youth of the area. Giving people a heart for various things. Some of you have, in your heart, you've got the wacky artistic crowd on your heart. Beautiful. Pray for them. Pray for them. Some of you might have a road on your heart. And I always bring up Regent Street just because we have a bunch of people who live on that road. Man, pray for that road. Pray for the people on that road. Pray for your neighbors. Pray for the owner of that bookstore that you know. Paper Moon. Pray for him, Naomi. Pray for him. He might be a Christian. I don't know. But pray for God's blessing on him. Personally, God's just given me something. I do not know why. I think I've told it to Sean. I've told it to others. God's just given me some sort of heart for Albert Road. I don't know why. But I'm going to do my best to get to know as many people on Albert Road. So now when I walk into the exchange and I walk around and Norman, the building manager, is there, we know each other. We know each other. Norman, we're looking for a venue. What you got, brother? He knows me. We go into, I took Paul Morn for coffee, but I forgot my wallet. So he had to pay for it on Thursday. But I took him to catch up. He can actually just code it. He can code it to Woodstock. It's the same bank account. But I went into the coffee shop and the barista there is like, pasta! And I was like, Paul, you see, I'm working, bro. I'm working. I'm getting to know the people. I'm getting to know Dennis, who owns the 3D printing coffee shop. What a fascinating thing. So I'm just randomly going there. I've got a heart for Albert Road. I've got a heart to, and thanks to my son, who's obviously got way more future in the film industry than I ever had, I've got back into the film industry. I got to be on set a few weeks ago, chatting to guys, wearing my Common Ground Woodstock t-shirt. God's speaking to me about certain spheres. What's He putting on your heart? What could He put on your heart? What type of sphere in this stretch of land could He ask you to really pray and invest into? And we must pray. We must pray to the Lord on behalf of the city, for its welfare, for its renewal at all levels, and first and foremost, for people's salvation. I said that's the sharp end of our mission. We must not lose that focus. And so on that note, here's on this whole thing of our posture towards culture, here's two practical things. The first is prayer. We need to carry on praying. We had a good 10, 12 of us or whatever in our lounge a couple of weeks ago, praying around this thing of evangelism. People were sharing ideas. I've captured those ideas. We're going to keep praying into that. But let's also pray into this twofold thing of, under the banner of seeking the welfare of the city, joining them in what they love and serving them where they're hurting, where the needs are. And so the date is the 23rd of June. That's next Monday. It's going to be at my house, our house, everyone is welcome. Sam's also going to be there off the back of his talk next week on justice, and I'm not joking, he's available for Q&A. Like, let's make this a time of prayer and ideas and prophetic contribution, as well as grappling with the conversations of justice and compassion in this area. And if I'm in surgery that night with my back, who knows? It'll be at Sam and Jane's house. I haven't told them yet, but they've always offered their house. So if it needs to change, it'll change. But that's the first invitation. Secondly, we want to connect with Woodstock and her people. And so Mish is going to come up and tell us about 2 ideas of events that we're going to try to pull off at the start of the year.
Yes.
Come, Michelle.
Cool.
Feel it.
Okay, so 2 ideas, but they were actually completely inspired by people in this room.
Yeah.
So the first one was, Karen, don't put the slide up yet.
Don't do it.
I was in Regent Street.
Yay! Yay!
And Tali was showing me her incredible studio, and she does these amazing creative things. But one thing I don't know she did was I don't know what else she did, but she makes paint. Like, she makes her own physical paint, like the actual paint she makes. And I was like, oh, this is amazing, show me. And she basically makes like palettes, like different palettes, where she's like, these colors go nicely together, and then she gives them names, whatever. And I picked up one, guys, and it said Woodstock, and I like got goosebumps. I was like, what is this? And she's like, it's my Woodstock palette. And basically, okay, I don't know, each color, each color in this palette represents different things in Woodstock. And for example, the green is Noah green, which is Noah's Ark, which is also end of Regent Street, which is a coffee shop and a charity shop, and does a lot of amazing stuff for Woodstock. Old age home. Anyway, so each color represents different things in Woodstock, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like, we obviously have to have a watercolor workshop. Like, tons of people would want to do that. And we'll do the Woodstock palette. So the whole thing will be about Woodstock. Like, we can get a venue in Woodstock, and we all get a Woodstock palette of paint, and we do this cool workshop because we've got an artist who can teach us, and then at the end we're like, bam, we're actually a church.
Gotcha.
Road and wherever, and please join us. And so anyway, that was the first idea. I was like, this is amazing, and this is definitely happening. And I was like, right, Talia, and she just stood there like, right, sounds great, I can help you, I can do that for you. So that was the first one. And then so that is happening, guys. A Woodstock watercolor workshop situation is happening. The second one was in the prayer time for evangelism. A lot of different people were mentioning youth, like the youth in Woodstock. There's a lot of youth. How do we reach the youth? What can we do for the youth? And my brain went straight back to student ministry and doing like 5-a-side soccer tournaments. And I was like, it's the easiest thing in the world. Like, find a great field, do a 5-a-side soccer tournament, and make it like totally free and vibey and massive and awesome, and somehow invite all the youth in Woodstock, basically.
With prizes.
With prizes and like love.
It was easy at UCT, so let's see.
Gazebos and the whole thing. And then at the end, we're like, bam! We're part of a church. Come join us. So those are the 2 ideas. So now I've had the ideas. You are the church. So if you would like to make these ideas happen to engage culture, I have a clipboard. Little pencil. And you can pass it around, and you can sign up. And I also put Alpha on here because I was like, hey, I need help with that too. And you can sign up for whatever your heart is beating for. Please sign up, because I can't make this happen, but we can make this happen.
Amazing, babes. Well done. If you can, and I seriously mean this, if you can ref a soccer game, like, put your name down there. That's one of the key things we realized we needed when we did this at UCT. But it was an amazing hit back in the day when we did it. So, all right, I'm going to land our second point I want to share a prophetic word with us from Rigby Wallace. So Rigby and Sue were here the other day. Remember, he shared and then he walked out after he shared his contribution. Didn't want to hear my sermon. But Rigby, he essentially, he planted this church. He planted Common Ground basically in 1997. That's 28 years ago. And I chatted to him this week because I knew about this word. I knew this word had been shaping our church for decades, really. And I was like, "Hey, Riggs, do you have that written down somewhere? Can you get hold of it? Can you give me what it was?" And so he gave it to me, and we had a good chat. And basically, somewhere around early 1997, Rigby was in Robertson, where he's now got his home and planning to retire. And he was on the golf course, as he does. And he was on a particular hole where apparently the mountain kind of looks a bit like Devil's Peak and Table Mountain side of things. And he was about to take over this church. It was called Word of Life Peninsula Church. Terrible name. Thank goodness he replanted it and called it Friends First from day one. And then that name got changed to Common Ground. But this is basically the history of our church. And he was praying on that golf course under the sort of fake Devil's Peak Table Mountain. And he said he was just asking God to show him something. He was about to take over this brand new massive task. And he said, God, can you show us something? Can you smile on us? Can you open your hand in these early days of our mission as we're trying to bring grace to the city? And he said he felt the Spirit put these words like they stood up in his heart and mind. And so I'll read them to us. In the years that lie ahead, I will bless you. I will give you an inheritance in and through the church, into the business world, in the arts, in the political arena, in sports and education, in every sphere of civic life. And he said it was something of Psalm 16, God saying, I'm going to cause the boundary lines to fall for you in sweet places. And some of you are probably quite new to the Common Ground story. I've been around for nearly 20 years. We have lived into this word in countless ways. I think of our church members representing the stormers, involved in the highest areas of political activity, people being promoted to CEOs of some of the biggest companies. This word has happened and lived out. But Rigby said to me this week, because I said, I feel like sharing it for our people. I don't know if it's for us. I mean, we're years beyond when that word was said. And he said, no, I think this is a multi-generational word. But then he said this, so it's a multi-generational word, it's a multi-generational encouragement, but you don't inherit it passively. You don't inherit it passively. He said it's a call of faith for us to go into all those spheres, to go and for God to use us, to make us salt and light into those spheres. And so I just love the diversity of people we've got in this room that can continue to inherit the promises. It's almost like things given to Moses, and then the second generation, the Joshua generation, moves into the land. I'm not saying we must change our church to Josh Gen because they're just down the road here. But there is something of that spirit that I think we must walk into. And I just love people in this room, in the software world, in the engineering world, in the NGO world, in the DJing world, in the health world, fashion world, finance, architecture. I think Naomi, for whatever reason, just sort of your blog, or your website, your whole thing, your blog. I just think there's so much there that can be culture shaping. That is culture shaping. You've got a contribution on that blog, don't you? Hey? Yeah, exactly. Just highlighting you. It's beautiful, guys. It's beautiful, and I want to call us to keep going. Whatever we do, whether we're writing, we're coding, we're mathing, we're brewing, whatever it is, bring it, create culture, seek the welfare of the city. And we do it. How we do it to the glory of God. There is a distinction of how we do this. And that just leads me into my final point. Everyone's still with me? Good. It's dense. I said it's dense. We're almost done. The final question. We're called to seek the welfare of the city. I think Michelle's quote is right. It just needs a bit of nuance, baby, which I'm going to give it now. But we're called to see where the city is hurting and help them, and find out what the city loves and join them in it. So how do we do that well? How do we engage in ways that do actually glorify God and don't just blow the mission up? And that's where John 17 comes in, that Nelly read. Jesus with his disciples on the last night. And I've got two frameworks here that I think just helpfully kind of unpack what Jesus was calling those disciples to and us as disciples in the modern day. So here's the two frameworks. They're easy. They're 3 words each. The first is we can either be a bomb shelter, a mirror, or an outpost. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about when we engage with culture, we have the choice to either receive, to reject, or to redeem. And we're going to chat about that quickly as well. So the first framework here. This is us collectively, but it will involve us as individuals. But as a church, we have an option. If we're gonna be involved in the city, we've got an option. The one is basically non-involvement. We can be a bomb shelter as a church. We can gather on Sundays, we can gather in life groups, we can preach the gospel here, we can disciple people here. But ultimately, what we do is we run and hide away from the culture. And from a distance, all we do is condemn the culture and we critique the culture. We say everything that's non-Christian about you guys and everything that's, from the pits of hell, condemn, critique. And our main view of Christ here is basically Christ is against culture. Christ loves the church, Christ is against culture. That's kind of bombshell mentality. Then we've got the opposite error that we could make, is to be a mirror. To be a mirror. What we do is we consume stuff from the culture and we copy stuff from the culture, and all we ever do as Christians in the church, if you could even call a church that does this a church, is we reflect back to the culture exactly who they are. We're just a mirror. There is no distinction, right? Their sexual ethics are our sexual ethics. Their tone is our tone. Their motivations and goals are also our motivations and goals. And I think that's a massive error, although many churches have gone this route. Many churches have gone this route. And what you get is you don't get a Christ that's against culture, you get a Christ that's just created by culture. It's a fake Christ. Here's what I believe is the correct option, and I'm still another theologian, this is not my ideas, is the idea of outpost. Outpost. We've spoken about our church being an outpost. And an outpost is a countercultural little community, smaller city within the larger city that is a representation of another land. And we're called to be an outpost of the kingdom of heaven in this land. And so we're called to be people who are not primarily condemning, critiquing, copying, and consuming the culture, although at times we will need to do all those things. But we're a people who are primarily offering creation and cultivation in the ways of Jesus. We are bringing the ways of our King from our homeland to this place in which we have been sent as exiles. Think of that picture of the Jews being sent into Babylon. It's not that Christ is against the culture. It's not that we must shape Christ in the image of culture. We believe that Christ is on a mission to transform culture. That's God's end game. God's end game is not to destroy this world and send us into cloud cuckoo land. God's end goal is to renew this whole earth and for us to come back here and live in glorious, redeemed culture. And so our goal is to shape the culture around us redemptively. That's the goal. We are actively contributing to and reforming the culture under the lordship of Christ. That's the whole thing of John 17. Be in the world, but not of the world. Don't be like the world, but also don't retreat from the world. Be in the world, but not of the world. And obviously, we see that in Jesus' life all the time. He's with the sinners, he's with the prostitutes, he's with the tax collectors, and he's with the Pharisees. And he's not like any of them, but he's with them all the time. And he is teaching and showing and modeling the ways of heaven. And then ultimately going to the cross and purchasing the power for you and I to live that out. Here's Tim Keller's quote. The church is to be a counterculture for the common good, an outpost of the kingdom that both contradicts and serves the culture. We don't withdraw, we don't assimilate, we're a faithful presence. It's what Mark Sayers calls, I actually haven't adopted this language, but maybe we should, calls the church to be a creative minority within the culture. It's quite cool, a creative minority, and I think we can be that. In all the various spheres that are represented in this room and the ones that will to come. There is sin involved in those spheres right now. Satan is involved in having a lordship in many of those spheres right now, but we are called to go there. We are called to be a faithful presence there. And we go in full confidence and full faith, because although there are little lords over all these parts of culture, Christ is sovereign over it all, and Christ is at work in it all. And that's when I'll read Abraham Kuyper's quote here. There is not a square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine. Jesus has been crowned King of this world. We don't need to make him king. We are proclaiming that he is king, and we are with him bringing the kingdom into this world. We're joining him in the redemption of all things. And here's the final framework, very quick, when it comes to us faithfully engaging culture. When you and I watch TV, go to a bar, hang out with a person of the opposite sex, whatever it might be, you've got three options always. You can either receive something, reject it, or redeem it. There's things we can receive and embrace with all our heart. We can receive Woodstock coffee. We can embrace it. We can embrace it. We can embrace great wooden furniture made in Woodstock. We can embrace mountain views and sunshine today. We can receive all those things as they are. Then there's things in Woodstock that we're going to have to reject. We're not going to worship at the mosque. I mean, it might be obvious, but we're going to reject that option, right? We're not going to participate, please don't, in drugs and crime, okay? We reject those things. But there are things that are possibly neutral, God's good gifts that have been twisted, but that we can redeem. And I'll give two Woodstock, Cape Town examples: beer and sex. Beer and sex. Someone can go to Woodstock Brewery, get 6 Californicator IPAs, get sloshed out of their mind, sin number 1, and then that leads them to sin number 2, 3, and 4 later that night. All right? But we can redeem beer. We can go into the Woodstock Brewery, we can worship Jesus there, like we did, and then we can have a pint afterwards, not get drunk, enjoy God's good gifts, and redeem that whole thing, like we did. Sex is the other example. All right? People will use sex in a million different ways with a variety of partners in a variety of relationships or online pornography. We can redeem sex. We can honor it. We can uphold it as a gift from God for one man and one woman in the context of marriage. We can redeem that thing and display ultimately who Christ is to the world by the way we do that. But receiving, rejecting, and redeeming is going to take discernment. I don't expect everyone in this room right now to have everything waxed. We're discerning things. By God's grace, we will see people saved into this community, and they are not going to have a clue, all right, what is always right and what is wrong. They're going to be figuring that out. And so we need to be aware of what is truly God's things and what is just cultural things. There's going to be so many things that we just think are right and normal because they're the waters that we just swim in. And God is calling us to put biblical lenses on to actually see truly the water that we're swimming in and see what's of God and what's not of God. And so I'll end by reading Romans 12, 1-2. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Basically, that's everything we do. That's culture making. Family, work, you name it. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. We're going to be faithful ambassadors in this culture. We're going to be able to truly seek the welfare of the city and seek it in God's definitions of things and engage culture. We're going to need His Spirit and His Word to guide us. Helpful? Long, dense, but quite simple with the frameworks at the end of the day.
Very good.
I'm going to invite the band up. Biscuit Mill. Biscuit Mill. I'm going to invite the band up. I'm talking about the Biscuit Mill now. It's where it is in my notes. I have no idea where it came in my notes, babe. Sorry. Guys, our third and final public gathering before we go public week in and week out is going to be back at the Biscuit Mill the week after next. And so, in my mind, when we're thinking invitationally, this is the last week that I think it's a good idea to invite people to Alpha. After then, I think it is kind of too complex and too late. But go for it. Invite people to Alpha this week. Just send them last week's first talk as like a catch-up if they want. Invite people to Alpha. And then the next invitation again is we're back at the Biscuit Mill. Hey, there is a slide. There we go. There we go. And ChatGPT gave us that line, where creators meet the creator. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to gather. We're going to preach the gospel once again. We're going to worship God at the Biscuit Mill as we continue to journey towards setting up this church. I'm going to pray, and then the band's going to lead us in the closing. So why don't we all stand? Father God, we've heard a lot today. I pray that your truth would land on people. If there's anything I've said which is a little off,
redeem that, God. Redeem that. God, what is your word? What is your calling upon us to seek the welfare of the city, to be discerning cultural engagers, to be not those who are hiding away from people, scared, but actually engaging the world like Christ did. Give us that spirit, God. Give us that heart. Give us that power. Give right now ideas into people's mind. Bring revelation of who you are and how you are calling us to move in. Move into Woodstock. Move into the city of Cape Town. To be a faithful presence. To be an evangelistic witness. To be people who join the city in what they love. Whatever is not sin, we want to join them and we want to serve them. Give us the heart. Give us the resources. Give us the energy. Give us the various different gifts in this room that you have placed upon different people. God, bring those out. Manifest those. Let people step into the callings that you have them to, that you have for them in the various spheres of life that we find ourselves in. God, help us bless the city and love the city as you love the city. Help us to be your ambassadors. And now as we land, God, we want to cast our eyes back to you firmly. Our Lord, our Savior, our Rock, our King. Come and receive our worship. Come and receive our praise. Come and fill our hearts again with truth and love. And then be with us as we connect with each other and continue to get to know each other in this beautiful, exciting adventure that we found ourselves in. Amen.